Welcome to this webinar. My name is Natalie from Orchid, and today, building on the Orchid Goes Remote blog, we will demonstrate how we use Sage 300 and Orchid modules in a hybrid cloud environment to support smarter remote work. We have covered many of these topics in previous webinars. We will now demonstrate 5 scenarios across different functional areas of the business. The AP team is going paperless using Document Management Link, Extender Workflow for approvals, and EFT to pay vendors. On the customer engagement side, customer-facing employees are supported with better information across teams using notes and automated processes. On the supply chain side, while it's not directly relevant to Orchid, who doesn't really ship box software anymore, inventory alerts and analysis using Process Scheduler, Extender, and Info Explorer, and using Extender to track more details on vendors and items are particularly relevant at a time of disruption of the supply chain. For the finance management point of view, we will demonstrate automated reports through Process Scheduler, Report Runner, and Info Explorer, managing by exception, and enforcing process compliance using Extender. And for the senior team, they can be comforted that the investment in technology adds value to their business through cost-effective tools. We will start with the AP team and how it works at Orchid using Document Management Link, Extender, and EFT. Sue enters invoices in Sage 300 Accounts Payables and files all the supporting documents. When the batch is posted, approval workflow starts and Steve receives an email. He can then use the Extender console to drill down, view the relevant documents filed against the invoice, and approve the batch. So you can then create an AP payment batch and, if necessary, view the documents in the payment. She can then send the EFT file to the bank and email the remittance advice. All this without leaving her desk. We're now logged into Sage 300 as Sue, and we're going to be processing AP invoices. Go into Sage 300 AP invoices, create a new batch, Zoom is one of our new vendors this month, enter the document number, enter the amount that's on my invoice, and this invoice actually came by email. Natalie did the subscription, has sent me a copy of the receipt. I can now drag that email here and the whole email will be filed. I can also just drag the attachment straight into here, and I can use the way that we're probably all more familiar with from other presentations on Document Management Link is click the Add button, which takes me straight to the Scan Documents folder where I would have scanned receipts and invoices. I'm going to attach this receipt as well, and because I've already got a file called this, I can then choose to rename it. If I want to keep both copies, I may have 2 components to that invoice, or I can overwrite, or I can rename it with the date, or I can give it my own name. So now all my documents relating to this payment, this invoice, are saved in Sage 300. I can keep entering more invoices into that batch. When I'm ready, I can choose to post it or make it ready to post. Our company has been configured to start a workflow when an AP invoice batch is set to ready to post. It's telling me that the approver is Steve and the batch status remains open. I can see the email has arrived to Steve saying that this batch needs to be approved, and I can see here in my batch listing that I've got a few open batches which haven't been approved yet because they're not posted yet. I can come here, have a look, and view the workflow history to see what the status of this is. I can see that it's still waiting for Steve to approve. If I need to, I can send him an email smart link using this little icon here. And what I can do is paste the link to the batch number. So when he receives it, all he has to do is click on this and come and approve through the console. Send that email. I can now log into Sage 300 as Steve, who has received an email, knows he needs to come in and approve some invoice batches on the console. If he was already logged into Sage doing some other work, the console has been configured to auto refresh every minute, so he will see new approval requests coming in here. He doesn't really want to see what's already been approved at this stage, so he's going to unselect that and just see what needs to be done. Can select this batch, drill down to the AP invoice batch, and see the document that's been entered, check that it's gone to the right GL account, and then approve it. He can look at this batch, see that it's got a different icon there, it's waiting for him to approve, and he could approve or reject from here. Can check all the documents have been attached. In this example, I'm actually going to click approve here from the console. This workflow has been configured to post as it's approved. That's been completed. And if I click on approved, I can see the ones that have been approved so far. Again, this is a configuration based thing that we can see in the console and not just in the workflow history reports what has been approved. And in the meantime, I can see my emails coming in. Logged in as Sue again, I've created the AP payment batch using standard Sage functionality. And if I look at that batch, I can see the invoice supporting documents for all the invoices linked to this payment. And one thing I've forgotten to do is attach the payment batch listing, which I've saved in my scan documents folder, so I can attach it from here. And now I've also got the batch listing that's actually attached to my payment batch. And now the final step is to create the EFT file using the process that you're familiar with. Go here, click create, and when I've finished that, I can print my remittance advices for batch 63, and choosing vendor customer as a delivery method, the remittance advice will be emailed to the vendor. Final step is to reconcile the bank statement. And what we've added recently is the ability to file bank statements against the banks. Come here and add the file. And here's my file, CCB April 2020. Attach it here. And I can then do my bank rec. And I've got my bank statement that's been saved from my banking software next to my bank. We have demonstrated how document management links support a paperless environment that is particularly well suited to working remotely. We'd been using it for a while in our AP team and in other parts of Orchid, but we've recently configured it for bank statements, for payment batch listing, to completely remove the need for paper folders. And while we've used EFT processing for a while for AP payments, we've noticed that EFT processing is proving even more popular these days, in particular with users starting to use it to process direct debit to collect customers' receipts. The AP invoice approval workflow is a new addition to our processes, from a nice to have to a great supporting tool for our remote teams. And we're benefiting from this configurable and editable workflow that can apply to other Sage 300 records such as AP vendors and beyond AP. Moving on to customer-facing employees, we will demonstrate our daily processes for new orders and for renewals. We use Sage 300 and extended scripts to create orders based on details held in Sage CRM. to send a renewal proforma invoices and to process renewal payments. And while you all know that Sue is at the core of this process, other staff members sometimes replace Sue without her detailed knowledge of customers. So they all need notes and automated processes and reminders to ensure the same quality of service. Viewing all pending orders is also useful when creating OE shipments for month-end processing with our distributors. In addition, with less time around the coffee machine and lunchroom to share details about new users and partners, we recently implemented a notification in Microsoft Teams for everyone to be familiar with new users, so this also helps the support team. And while we don't use automatic notifications for our customers, you can use Process Scheduler to run scripts that can be configured to notify team members of overdue accounts, or for custom processes such as confirmation of appointments scheduled in Service Manager, or sending surveys when a job is completed or an order is invoiced. Let's look at it in action in Sage 300. For simplicity's sake, in this example, we're always going to stay logged in as administrator, and we're going to start with a process where we create new orders. This opens a screen that's actually an extender screen, which connects to our Sage CRM. So we enter the user detail from CRM, the order date and the PO number from the customer, from the business partner, or from the distributor. When I click Create Orders, the order is created with the details that are held in CRM. Order number is populated. I can now see my order. A few points to note: that the order confirmation PDF has been saved in the appropriate folder, and I can see it next to the order. I can go here, double click, open it, and see the details. I have some customer notes to remind me to send the order confirmation to both Sage teams. Now, some of our distributors have got different processes. Some of them can be automated using Sage 300 functionality. Others are a little bit harder, and in some cases, when the volume isn't that great, a note is sufficient to remind all users what to do rather than a full-blown automation. We also have some instructions on the screen. For example, reminding us that there's a special pricing on the EFT, AP, AR and EFT payroll bundle when they're purchased at the same time, and also some notes for co-terming. In addition to the notes, we also have some automated processes. For example, if there is a special for a particular reason, a new launch price on the when we launch the EFT payroll module, for example, then we have a table in Sage 300 by item category and region and distributor, which sets a discount on the line where appropriate. So all these automations and nodes help us process our orders more efficiently, and therefore providing better service to our partners and distributors and ultimately end users as well. Recently, we've introduced a notification to Microsoft Teams when a new order is processed. We can see the notification here about this new order for Extender, Document Management Link and EFT processing, and 4 users. For the purpose of this webinar, it's in our sample company channel, but in live setup, it's in the partner news on the WhatsApp at Orchid team. Sometimes we need to amend the order after the default one has been created. This is particularly relevant for renewals where occasionally there's a catch-up or somebody wants to purchase multi-year. In that case, we update the order, increase the quantity, set the discount for the multi-year renewal, post the order, and we have access to these automated buttons here to print the order confirmation, email it to the Sage contact, and going forward we will use the multiple contact setup in version 2020 PU2 to facilitate emailing multiple contacts within a single partner. When our order is shipped and invoiced, again we now have this ability here to print the invoice with the click of a button. Refresh. I can see that now the invoice has been printed and saved in the customer invoices folder and is visible from the order entry screen. While we won't go into the detailed setup, a reminder that you can amend these configuration in IM options, which for simplicity's sake I've copied into this customer engagement folder. And here I can see the configuration I have for OE 1100. I've got my extender scripts that display customer history. I've got my documents that show the order related documents, my customer notes, my customer invoices with the last invoice number, and my instruction notes attached to Roto ID. I would also like to show the workflow template that is behind the notification to Microsoft Teams, my order notification template. It is a simple workflow, doesn't have any approval, it just starts and within the same step actually completes. We're still populating some values that are typically relevant for the console, like the drill down and the description, because they also go into the workflow history table. And the one condition we have here is that if the PO number is set to renewal, then we do nothing. But if the PO number is not renewal, then we create a card in Microsoft Teams with the web connector that we've configured here. That's the subject of the card, and that's the detail that we can see in here. So very simple 8-step workflow that can help integrate Sage 300 on premises with Microsoft Teams held in the cloud, making the information available to all users of Microsoft Teams, whether they're actually using Sage 300 or not. Finally, I want to show something that we use on the shipment entry screen, which we have demonstrated in Orchid sample data before, which is the ability to show all the back orders when we process a shipment, as well as the AR aging and the customer's credit status. All these notes are what we call extended notes because they actually run an extender script in the background. And from this list of open back orders, I can actually drill down into the order and I can view my related back orders from here. And we use this when processing monthly reconciliations with our distributors, where we ship and invoice all the orders that have happened during the month. So while a lot of the tools that support remote work are around storing the documents in Sage 300, having notes that facilitate collaboration, we found that the automations are particularly useful, especially when a different team member processes the order, as they may not remember all the details that the regular person, in our case Sue, knows very well. Well, you all know that our products are distributed through different channels in different parts of the world. Therefore, our processes can't be 100% standard, and we need the flexibility provided by Sage 300 and our modules to process our orders as smoothly as possible. Thanks to Notes and Document Management Link to share information across the system, Extender to share information outside of Sage 300 to Microsoft Teams, and to help automate our processes, our geographically dispersed team can continue to support partners and users across the world as efficiently as possible. So we hope that this insight into our internal processes gives you some ideas that can be applied to your business. Next, we're going to look at managing the supply chain, our third group of stakeholders. While this doesn't directly apply to Orchid, as we don't ship software in boxes, we manage vendor relationships and we need to track demand for various modules to assess where to put our development efforts. We do use Notes and Document Management Link to track information about our vendors. We also use Extender for special processes that are specific to subscription items versus software sold under a perpetual license. But more broadly, at a time of disruption in the supply chain, where our usual suppliers may not be available and may not have the items we need, most businesses will need more regular information about inventory and about demand. Some of the ways Orchid modules can help include daily notification about low inventory using Process Scheduler, inventory stock analysis reports with Info Explorer and Process Scheduler. And we will demonstrate such examples that send information to Sage users using reports that they can look at without being logged into Sage 300. You may have some team members present in the warehouse for receiving and dispatching goods. Some managers may be working from home. Other team members are on site every other week. So with remote work in these circumstances, collaboration is even more important than usual. As in the previous scenario, Document Management Link and Notes can be used to facilitate work for users doing the processing, to store vendors' contract, to store pricing notes for items, in our case different processes for perpetual licenses and subscriptions. We can also use Extender to track additional vendor and item information. This information is then stored in Sage 300 and can be shared among team members, used in customization and Sage 300 reports. So in our scenario here, we will show an example of making item optional fields mandatory only for certain types of items. In the more volatile times where some our usual vendors may not be available, some our existing vendors may not have the inventory available, we might need to start working with a new supplier quickly, but this shouldn't preclude from the usual due diligence processes. So we will demonstrate an example of using the AP vendor approval workflow to facilitate this due diligence process. We discussed in the previous scenario that we could use Process Scheduler to send notification to team members about overdue accounts. Process Scheduler is also relevant in the context of supply chain management. This sample schedule is configured in Orchid Sample Data, and the scripts behind are available on the website. This is a daily schedule that lets us do two things. First, run this script that checks the inventory items where the quantity by location is less than a minimum quantity stored in Sage 300. This is very useful for the warehouse manager and the purchasing manager. We also have the AR customer aging email notification, which sends an email to the finance team with a list of customers that are overdue and out of their terms. It is beyond the scope of this webinar to look at exactly how to configure Process Scheduler, so I'll encourage you to look at the training material on Process Scheduler. Another way that Orchid modules can help manage supply chain in more volatile times is using Info Explorer and Process Scheduler. So again, Process Scheduler can be used to send the cubes. We have an example here of a schedule that actually sends the Info Explorer cubes every day. Put in the cube name in there, the backorder report to assess our demand, and our sales by customer and item, which is also very useful to look at our past demand and try and assess forthcoming orders. We have an Info Explorer cube that helps us analyze inventory aging, and while it's beyond the scope of this presentation to demonstrate Info Explorer in detail, this cube highlights items which have a high percentage of inventory older than 90 days. For example, we can see that A11050, the 13-watt mini fluorescent bulb total, 50% of it is older than 90 days. The LED 15-watt light bulbs, 99% is over 90 days. So if we need to view more detail, we can drag the more detailed quantity. How much is over 181 days? And how much is older than 1 year? We can also flip around and look at location before item. And if I collapse this, I can see that location 2 is doing okay, but location 1 has a relatively high percentage greater than 90 days, with stock older than 90 days. So I can expand here and look at which items in location 1 are an issue without having to run a separate report. So at a time where demand can be very volatile, drop very quickly in some cases, or in some industries increase rapidly, where suppliers may not be in a position to deliver on time, having such cubes that can be emailed daily to the relevant people who can look at the cubes without logging into Sage 300 can be very useful. Next, we're going to look at some validations and processes that are particularly relevant to manage the supply chain. For example, we've configured some scripts using Extender to validate optional fields on items. Out of the box, you can make some optional fields required, and you can have drop-down values to validate the data. But in our scenario, we want some special validations for items that you can allow on the web store. So if the item is allowed on the web store, when I try and save, I'm getting a message that these 3 optional fields are mandatory: color, lead time, and manufacturer. I can go and choose what I need here. It's black, lead time 3 days, and this is my primary manufacturer. Now I can save my item. Now if I look at another item that is not allowed on the website, then I have different fields for that item. So only the color that's actually mandatory. We achieve that by attaching a script to the IC item view using Extender, Customizer, or Developer. Final step of our tools to support supply chain management in volatile times is looking at AP vendor approval. Because we may need to work very quickly with new vendors to deal with demand for special items like webcams or extra screens for remote work, or items that our usual suppliers don't have available, we may need to create new vendors more often than usual, but we still need our due diligence. So I've done an approval workflow on the AP vendor. As I'm creating my new vendor, I'm going to add it. I'm notified the vendor has been made inactive until approved. If I go on my workflow console, in the meantime I can see an email coming through. Because I'm logged in as admin, I'm going to have to look at all workflow instances. I don't want to see the ones that are already approved. I may want to see only the ones that are marked as urgent. So here I can see that this workflow approval has been assigned to Steve. I can drill down to my vendor, look at the history, reassign it to somebody, or simply done my review and I can approve it. Or if I feel like some information or documents are missing, I can click review and send a notification back to the starter. In this particular case, I'm going to approve it. Can't actually approve it because I've entered it and I have to have another user to approve it. So it enforces my separation of duties between the users who enter information and the users who actually approve. Now logged in as Steve, I can see what's assigned to me. To new vendor, approve. I can enter a comment that will be emailed back to the person who started the workflow. And now it's dropped off my console and my vendor has been made active. And as the starter of that, the creator of that record, I can see the vendor is now active and I can start working with them. These examples looking at how to use Extender, Process Scheduler and Info Explorer to manage the supply chain in volatile times support remote work, but more broadly they demonstrate some configuration that help businesses providing analytical tools and support contactless approvals, make relevant information available to users as they need them. Moving on to the finance team, they benefit from the examples we've looked at before, but they also have their own requirements. At a time of increased volatility, regular reports on how the business is doing is even more important than ever. At Orchid, we receive daily cube with new sales and renewals processed, combining information from Sage 300 and Sage CRM using Info Explorer. We also receive daily and weekly timesheet notifications sent to support the project invoicing process. In a remote context, managing exceptions is even more important than usual for the finance team, so using Process Scheduler and extend a script to send a list of unposted batches, clearing accounts that should have a zero balance. Or using Info Explorer for managers to view their exceptions daily and weekly. So we will demonstrate using Info Explorer to identify exceptions and demonstrate Report Runner for financial reports. While annual budgets may appear irrelevant at times where things change very rapidly, key stakeholders are likely to request more regular information to manage their day-to-day decisions. You may need to reforecast more often than usual as circumstances change weekly, even daily in some industries. More granular controls and budgets at a lower level are increasingly relevant to help explore end-user demand and work with key customers. In Sage 300, you can use optional tables to store budgets by customer and item or customer and item category, budget by project, and use the Excel add-in for ease of data entry. You can also use Info Explorer Writeback for top-down analysis and monthly reforecast. Showing all these features is beyond the scope of this presentation, but you can refer to the Budgeting Solutions page of the Orchid website, and there are a lot of resources, brochures, and video available there. The finance team also focuses on increasing compliance with audit and business processes. An extender can support these validations and workflow to reduce the risks of data entry errors and make the processes smoother. We have looked at examples of using Extender to validate data in previous scenarios for approval workflows. In this presentation about the finance team, we will only demonstrate a simple budget approval workflow around the locked status in Information Manager optional tables, focusing on the budgeting process. So the main tools that support the finance teams in our scenario are Info Explorer, Process Scheduler, and Report Runner and optional tables. Let's start with Info Explorer. We're going to look at some exception. This cube is giving me a list of all unposted batches in AP and AR and GL. And from this dashboard, for example, looking at unposted AR receipts, I can drill through. This one is from 2019, so it's quite old. It's a little bit strange. So I can investigate further and wonder why my monthly subscription direct debit batch has not been posted and processed through EFT. So this is one type of control that I can use as a finance manager working remotely and not necessarily being able to look over the shoulder of some of my team members. Other exceptions that I can track using Info Explorer cubes is bin tracking status. Again, some bin transfers that are not ready, some that are in progress, and from there I can go and drill into the bin transfer documents. On the AP payable side, I can quickly have a look through my dashboard at my age outstanding by vendor group and rank my vendors by amount due. So if I have cash flow issues these times, I can try and see if I can negotiate with these vendors to postpone some of the payments that are due or overdue. Again, this is beyond the scope of this presentation to go into the details of Info Explorer, so please refer to the training material for more details. Another component of Orchid suite of products for the finance management team to help work remotely is Report Runner. Report Runner is made up of two parts: Report Runner for crystal reports, for analytical reports, and Financial Report Runner focused around the GL, the Sage 300 GL Financial Reporter. This is the one we're going to look at now. I have configured some reports there for Department 100 and Department 200, and I have saved some criteria. So if I click Select Print, I can see that I've saved all this report for Department 100, and it's going to be emailed to me. I can choose in what order they're going to be run, so their balance sheet, the financial ratio report, and the income statement summary for Department 100. So if I click Print, it's going to go ahead and generate the report, save them in the appropriate folder, and email them to me. You can see it's sent an email, and it has saved the 3 reports in the custom reports folder as requested. So this lets you pre-save all the different ways that you might want to run your financial reports across department. In addition, using Process Scheduler Level 3, you can automatically do these runs and save and email your reports automatically and on the schedule that makes sense for your business. Again, the point here is not to give you a detailed training on how to set this up, but to give you ideas as to what might be relevant. If we look at the analytical report side of Report Runner, I can see here that I've configured different groups of custom reports and standard Sage 300 reports, accounts payable, in accounts receivable, inventory, and sales. Some of them are scheduled to run automatically, and that can be automated using Process Scheduler Level 1. Alternatively, you can also view the report or run them from here. So I can choose Print, look at my schedule, and run my schedule. This will save the report in the configured folder, Custom Directories, or Ltd Saved Reports, and send an email to Orchid Systems modules at gmail.com. But Report Runner, in particular in conjunction with Process Scheduler, sending reports to users wherever they are in a format that they can look at without having to log on to Sage, just a PDF or a spreadsheet, is particularly relevant at the moment. The final piece we're going to demonstrate with regards to the finance team is budget approval using extender workflow and optional tables. For details on how to track budgets at different levels within Sage 300 using optional tables, you can configure your info sets, which let you track budget at any level you require in Sage 300. So here I've got a budget by customer and item. I can configure a GL forecast at the GL account level, and I've also got a budget by sales rep at the GL level. When I've imported my budget and I'm ready, I can choose to lock it. There are some Sage 300 security settings around the locked field in Information Manager, but what we've configured in this example is a workflow that will start when your budget is locked. So now if I look at the console, I will need to look at all. You can see an email has been sent to approve the budget GL forecast, and there's a record in the workflow console saying that the budget forecast approval is required. It's a different color. It's been assigned to Steve, and it's part of the finance team. So for the finance team, we've looked at how visibility and efficiency can be increased through automating report distribution and enforcing compliance with approvals and budgets in Sage 300. Managing by exception is particularly relevant at this point in time, and Process Scheduler and Info Explorer can support these processes. Report Runner makes it easier to run financial and analytical reports, and combined with Process Scheduler, it automates that process, giving that visibility to the rest of the finance team. The extender can help with increased efficiency and force validations and compliance that are more important than ever. What does this all mean for the senior management suite? They have access to cost-effective tools that help support their business for remote work and help reimagine processes. So we've explored how Orchid uses Sage 300 and Orchid modules to support remote work. The AP team going paperless using document management link, external workflow for approvals, and EFT to pay vendors. So these modules have an obvious paperless and contactless dimension, but our experience is that collaboration supported by automation is even more important at times when more of the team is split across locations. So beyond the more obvious tools, having systems that support and that can adapt changing requirements and processes is more critical than ever. For our customer-facing side, we use notes and extender and automation to support all our customers. For the supply chain, we've looked at inventory alert and analysis using Process Scheduler, Extender, Info Explorer, and Extender again to track more details on vendor and items. For the finance management team, automated reports through Report Runner and Process Scheduler help manage by exception and enforce data validation and process compliance. So for the senior management team, having cost-effective tools to support these changing business conditions is more important. And the depth of Sage 300 combined with the flexibility provided by Orchid modules and this hybrid cloud environment helps businesses work remotely and build resilience for the future. We've used our case study based on the Orchid Goes Remote blog that you can read for more details on the website, to illustrate some principles from a range of sources, from articles in the Harvard Business Review to McKinsey reports for some general business backgrounds. We've also analyzed some tips from our software providers like Zendesk, Lucidcharts, Atlassian, and Madcap. And while we were already partially on that journey with flexible systems to support our team in a hybrid cloud environment, we've been pushed to complete some more changes, and we're comforted that Sage 300 and Orchid modules support our remote working model very well. We will continue to integrate best-of-breed applications to our core systems to better support customers and partners through our soon-to-be released portal, through additional training videos and other resources, and obviously less travels for the time being. Our Sage 300 product development strategy continues to focus on the web screens, with EFT for AP and AR taking shape, as you would have seen at TPAC recently. And we're also working on improvements to Extender workflow. Keep reading our newsletters and registering for the webinar for some new features to come soon. And we encourage you all, like us, to continue to monitor your business more closely than usual and work our internal processes to build resilience and imagine new ways of working where possible. To get started on that journey, we have alluded to some of these resources during the presentation. We have a new solutions page on the website called Going Remote. Please have a look at that. For going paperless, you can look at the document management link, demonstration and training video, as well as the collaboration video. Look at the EFT training videos, where you may find some tips and features that you're not necessarily aware of in EFT. Look at the Orchid sample data to see some practical examples of customer engagement. Look at the Manage by Exception video and the Process Scheduler training video to manage the supply chain. Look at Report Runner for the finance team, Workflow in Action, and budgeting videos. And thank you from the team at Orchid.